Welcome back to our Bible study this afternoon, and we want to look a little bit further, actually to the finish of chapter 4 in the book of Mark. We have looked at several things, I suppose, at least a couple of key thoughts here in chapter 4, and we want to try to finish this chapter today. It's a very familiar one. There's probably not a whole lot of brand new stuff I can tell you. Maybe I could give you some background, or maybe I could tell you a little bit about what the sea is like, and a lot of those things you may have already heard before. But let's go ahead and at least look at a little bit of what is shared here in the last part of Mark 4, where Jesus has been in the middle of his teaching. He's been sharing with the multitude around him, and now they've finally come to the end of probably a rather tiring day. And as they finally, it says even or evening was come, and so he suggested to the disciples, why don't we go ahead and go on across the Sea of Galilee here. And of course, if you look at the earlier verses, they're actually the very first verse of the chapter, then you see that he was actually teaching the people from a ship. And so they he's been in the ship throughout the day, and now he just kind of basically tells the disciples, let's just go ahead and launch out, and we'll go on to the other side. And of course, that was probably a fairly common thing for them. And so that's what they're doing here. He says, let's go ahead and pass to the other side. Maybe he was ready to get a break, have a little bit of rest. And so that's what they were going to do. And it does mention here there were other ships that were there around apparently as well, probably as they were making their way across that evening. There were other ships that were out on the water as well. And be fairly common. It's kind of a pleasant sight when you see the different ships around. And if you've been around the water very much, as I was as a boy at least, an evening on the water and you have the other boats out and about, it can be an enjoyable thing. But in the midst of all of that, with all these others, there's all the other little ships and their own ship, and then the great storm of wind and the waves beat into the ship. And again, you've probably heard numbers of preachers tell about how the geography or the topography, maybe would be the better word, of that area. It seemed like it kind of has that funnel effect of the wind coming down there into or over the Sea of Galilee, and it stirred up a storm. And yet, in the middle of all that, probably because Jesus had given out so much. And let me just stop here for a quick moment, just a little detour, but just a little reminder to you. Some of you may be pastors, or you've been in ministry of various sorts. Others of you may not have been, and you don't really know exactly what it's like. But maybe just a little caution: be careful in what you say or how you respond at the end of a long day of ministry, because sometimes those are the times when, as a pastor, you feel pretty much ready for a break, pretty much ready for some rest and relaxation. And so just a little rabbit trail there, but just kind of keep in mind that Sunday night after the day's activities is probably not the best time to bring up some new project or maybe some criticism. And so that's just a little something thrown in here. But Jesus was at the end of this long period of teaching and his time with the multitude. And so he goes into, it says here, the hinder part, verse 38, the hinder part of the ship. And he was asleep on a pillow there. And even in the midst of the storm, he was tired enough, probably. Some may suggest, well, maybe it was just because he knew enough to know that he could trust the Father with his care during that time. I'm not sure about all the details. It may have been his pure exhaustion, or it may have been his confidence that God was in control, of course, he being the Son of God. But then when they come to him and they talk to him about it, then he arose, he rebuked the wind, and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And of course, again, as you've probably heard it over and over again, you've probably heard it preached this way, but I'd like to just admonish you or encourage you today. Different ones of us go through different storms at different times. And there may be times where maybe we ought to have enough faith to just, look the winds and the storm in the face, so to speak, and just trust God through it all. And I'm sure God is pleased when we do that. But there are times that I believe he also knows very well that we are weary, we are weak, we have a difficult time, totally keeping our eyes above the storm. And so he knows when that happens, and he can still say peace to you. And so when that happened, of course, it says, and the wind ceased and there was a great calm. And then he did spend a little time rebuking them. Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? A couple things there real quickly is, first off, even in these days, the last while, several months probably, have been a time of fear in our nation. There's been so much going on, some of it through the health scare, and some of it even through the rioting and various things going on. And so sometimes it may seem that we have reason to be fearful. And yet maybe Jesus would speak to us and say, why are you so afraid? Did you forget that this world is not your home? Did you forget that I still have everything in control? Did you forget that I can still calm everything in a moment? Did you forget all those things? Why are ye so fearful? If you're a Christian today, there's no need to fear because we know how it ends. We know that he will be in charge. He will be on the throne when all of the rest of the turmoil is over with. And then also, maybe we need to just take that second question to heart. And sometimes we might say, well, fact is, I've had a debate, not really debate, but a little discussion with a parishioner one time, friendly and helpful, kind of an iron sharpening iron type of a discussion on, can you have little faith, or do you have either great faith or no faith? And it's just some interesting thoughts there. But here Jesus said, how is it that ye have no faith? No faith. Even the disciples who had been with him so much, they'd seen Jesus do so many things for them, and yet even they were blamed as having no faith. And I'm not sure exactly where that puts me or where that puts you today, but oh God, help us to have the faith that moves mountains, that calms seas, that keeps our hold on God even in the worst of times. And when the storm ceased, it says in verse 41, they feared exceedingly and said one to another, what manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Could I just tell you, he's the same God that we serve today. The same one who's still on the throne, the one who's still in charge and is able to calm our storm. And so today, don't let the storm overwhelm you, but remember when you've got the Master with you, you can trust him for victory. Every step of the way, every storm of life, every battle, whatever it is that you face, he is still the one who's the master of the wind and the sea. And so you go with God this week, and may he give you the special strength. I know we do face trying times, and none of us is exempt from that. We all face those troubles, but in various sorts. But I am here to encourage you today. He is still the master of the storm. Praise his name today.